Okay, here is this video. That last one got messed up, and so I'm just going to redo it. Basically, what we done here, the last video I showed you how to create your own item list and your own item template creator so you can create your own items without ever having to just keep adding to this long list. You'll have your own list, and instead of adding to this long list, you have your own list to add your items to. Any items you add, that's what I taught you last time. So this time we're going to continue with how to create your own spawn table. Why do you want a spawn table? One of the problems is if we go over here to creature template creator, you'll see all these creatures right here, and let me just try to find one real quick right off the bat. Where is it at? Let me find one. There we go, Wildcat. So if we take a look at Wildcat, you notice Wildcat has a set den name, a set den material, and some of the things I've seen people doing in modding is basically they've been coming in and start spawning dens and creating dens for all these different mobs. Well, a lot of these mobs won't spawn because it's not a PvP server or it's not a Epic server. So certain mobs are not on the line of PvE servers to spawn, and vice versa. Uh, anyway, if you want a mob to spawn, there's another way of doing all this and get them to spawn naturally rather than having to add dens. Because when you add a den, basically what happens is a den can spawn a ton of mobs. As though the spawn table, what it does is it takes how many you want to spawn in a set little group or whatnot, either singles or little groups, and it spawns it in an area randomly on the map. And basically, and it has a chance that can spawn. You can set the chance for the chance for it to spawn. And what that does is it's different than here. A den will spit out X amount of mobs. And for example, if you make a gorilla den and add it in the creature template creator, and what that's going to do is that's going to spawn gorilla dens, and gorilla dens, you get one to spawn on the beach. And this is the whole reason why I started to do this is on my map, I started noticing some of the dens. One gorilla den spawned on a beach, and it was like 70 to 100 and some gorillas surrounding this beach. So that's not good. So basically what we want to do is we want the animals to spawn naturally out in the world rather than, you know, in one big set location. That's good for certain things, but when it comes to that would be good for basically a den would be good for if you're, let's say you got a cavern under the ground and you're going to make it a spooky Halloween theme or something like that, or a dungeon, and you can put a den spawn or whatnot and tell it spawn these, or I don't know if it works underground, but you can do it above ground. So maybe you got this big what do you call them things? You got a big maze, and basically you put a spawner in the center of the maze, and you tell it to spawn out skeletons, so it just starts spitting out skeletons, and randomly around it, and these skeletons go roaming all through the maze, and you got to go through the maze and work your way through the maze. That's one thing that they would be good for. But when it comes to just wanting the mobs to be natural, it's not the best way to go with a den. So it's best just to leave the dens the way they are now, and let's just go to our spawn table and make our own spawn table. So basically, I've done all this. I've done created, so I'm not going to create it again. But what I'm going to do is walk you through and show you what I've done, and explain to you how to do what you want to do. So basically, the first thing you want to do is you want to create a new spawn table. And this is under zone. So you'll go to zone, you'll open up spawn table, and you'll create your own spawn table. So let me expand these here. And what you'll want to do is do nothing. You're just going to create this class by basically going here. You'll get your package. You'll go up here. You'll right click, new Java class. You'll pay. That's not what I wanted. Basically, you know the what I'm talking about. You'll paste it in here, and you'll go dot, and then you'll put in spawn table, and then at the end of it, you don't want to do this yet because this one you're just recreating this one so you can be able to change stuff in it without actually changing stuff in this one. So basically, just recreate it. So, and then once you got that done, basically what you'll do here is you'll let's see. Let's look at the original. So that's going to be the best way to do this, is to look at the original. Okay. Okay, as you can see, we got a final class, and since it's final, you can't get access to it. So what we have to do, and then we got these private classes. So what we got to do is we got to, until we get the API that's going to have all the getters and setters and stuff, so we don't have to do any of this stuff, and they're going to change it on their own what they want to make public, or if they want to remove a final on it or whatnot. But until that API comes in, we got to change certain pieces of information so we can get access to information within inside this class. So the first thing we got to do is we got to remove the final. As you can see over here, the final got removed on the public class. Then we have to turn around, we have to change these privates to public. So we have to change those to public. Once we have all that done, we can save this file out, and that's our new spawn table. We won't need that spawn. We won't need the original, but we're going to replace the original with this one, where we've just changed that little bit of information there so we can get access to it. Okay, so you'll want to recompile that, and you're done with that spawn table. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create your own. So basically, create your own Java class, and I like in these tutorials to add new to the end of it, so I know it's spawn table, but it's a new one, which basically is mine. Mine, I normally use Arconic, which is the name I go by on the forums and everything. So pretty much every class I have, if I make my own class of it, it's going to be that class name with Arconic at the end. So I know I altered it, and it's the class that I've altered. So plus and it's got the beginning of the class name to it, so I know what class I'm in, and that it's mine that I altered. So it's pretty simple stuff. But basically, you'll create a new one, and we created this one new. Now the only thing we need when we create this new one, we don't need all the information that's actually in this folder. Okay, we don't actually need this information. We got to make it public, but we don't need it because we're going to use it out of here. We're going to extend into here, and we're going to grab these, so we don't need any of these in our file. The only thing you need to copy out of this entire file is you're going to want the logger, and oh, here we are. This is ours. You're going to want the logger. You're going to create your own constructor, and our constructor is just that. So you're going to create your own constructor. You're going to want to grab this private static final logger and put this in here. And the only other thing you want out of here is this part right here, the static void creature entries. You want everything all the way down to the bottom of this. Just grab it all. You don't need the logger at the bottom, but you just need all that right there. Grab all that, copy it, and paste it over here up underneath your constructor. Once you're done with that, it's always good to go ahead and copy all the imports from that class over in here. Whether you use them or not really don't matter. But once you're done, we now have our own spawn table class, and what this does is whatever we change in here, it's going to overwrite what's in the original. So let's go back to the original, for example, so we can see what's in this one here. all this stuff right here, this encounter cal equals new encounter, and cal.add type, which is creature template ID, which that's the cal's ID, and numbers. What this is saying is, for every creature you want to be able to spawn in this table, you got to create this line of code right there, and you have to sit down and put the ID and how many you want to spawn when it pops that, and basically give it a short little name. So like certain animals ain't here, like the warg. You don't want to say creature template warg, you just want to say warg. Okay, that's all you want to say. Simple little name. Encounter is called warg, and it's going to equal a new encounter, and warg.add template or add type, and excuse me, and there's the type. So there's a lot of mobs that ain't in here, and the first thing I did, if you look down through here, these template IDs are just strung and slung all over the place, and it drives me batty. The first thing I done was I rearranged everything in numeric order. So starting from we go to creatures, we get to the creature template IDs. The first thing I did was went down this list, and if it was a creature, of course you won't see 1 or 2 in there because these are not creatures that you don't want to spawn a human Sid or a dummy doll around on the map. So basically, you know, you just spawn the animals you want. You don't want to start spawning lieutenant guards, and you might want those, but you'd have to add them to the list because they're not in this list. You have to add your own. So the first thing you want to do, you might want to do, is rearrange these so they're in order. You don't have to, but that's just me. Otherwise, you know, you go down the list, find out which animals are missing, like the gorilla's not in here, the warg's not in here, the hyena's not in here, skeleton, zombie, they're not in here. You have to add those. And basically to add those, all you're going to want to do is sit down. Let's just say we want to add that warg, so we're just going to go right here, and we're going to copy that, we're going to paste that right there. We're going to call it warg for short, and we're going to call it warg. And we need the warg ID, so we go over to the template creator IDs and we look for the warg in here, and I don't feel like hunting it down, so it's 86. So we go back over here and we change this template ID to 86. And what this number is stating how many, whenever the add creature method is called, it's going to add this creature, and what it's going to do is it's going to spit out this number. So if you only want 1 being spawned every time the add creature calls, you know, like sometimes if you're walking around an area and you've been lucky enough to see when they spawn, you might see a set of spiders and 4 just pop out of nowhere in a little bitty circle, and then they roam off from there. That's what this is doing right here. This is basically saying I want 4 mobs to spawn right there whenever add creature comes in, and then it pops, and then that's what you get. So you can actually change how many are going to spawn every time the add creature method is called. Okay. And this is how you get them on the map to be able to start spawning. Now this stuff down here is what tiles that they can actually spawn on. So basically on grass, they're allowing cows, wildcats, dogs, hens, roosters, calves, bulls, pheasants, horse, sheep, and zombies, which you can see that right here. This is what they're allowing to spawn. And this chance is the chance that that animal has to spawn. The higher the number, the more often it's going to spawn one of those. So basically in here you would sit down and add what creatures you want to be able to spawn on a grass tile. So if we want to be able to spawn some more creatures, I'm just going to copy the last line, add another one in here, and I'm going to say we just added a warg, so let's put warg up here, and we're going to say I want a chance of 3 because I want it to be able to spawn more often than zombies. So I'm going to say I'm going to increase its chance to be able to spawn by up to 3, and basically now the warg can spawn on grass tile. if you look down here to sand, we got crab, tortoise, crawler, and skeleton. Of course, I added this in the one video, but the video got messed up, so I'm redoing it. This, basically skeletons don't spawn in here. This is me after I've done altered it. But let's go look at the original for a minute here, because this is very important. I need to cover this. You see right here this statement, this statement right up under grass, it says if server is a local server and is a challenge server. Well, actually it just says if this server is local and is challenge server, then I want you to spawn these. These will not spawn on the sand tile. They're only going to spawn on the sand tile if this is a challenge server. If you want these to spawn on a sand tile, regardless, and you got a PvE server, you don't need to change this code or add to it. You could if you want to, but the only thing you really got to do is just sit down and remove this piece off. Basically, select that, remove it, and remove this bracket, and then these two will jump up underneath here, and basically you have it. And that's what I've done over here in the first video. I went through taking these out because a lot of these, mobs I want to be able to spawn on my PvE server, and I don't need to sit down and say if server.is local server is a challenge server, or servers.localservers.is a login server or a home server. I don't need to add all that extra code. I just need to remove the if statement. Because the only thing the if statement does is add that code in there and say, okay, these mobs can spawn only if this condition is met. Well, I don't need that condition at all, so I can just remove the if statement condition and just go ahead and put the mobs right up underneath the original spawn. Now these right here, you see like a sealed pair can spawn on a rock tile, and this is on a rock side. Then we got mycelin, and for example, I didn't need mycelin, so all I did was I just ripped this whole line out because I didn't need mycelin, since I don't use mycelin. Be careful not to rip this out. Add tile type rock side, because this is with up here. But basically, from here down, I ripped out mycelin because I don't use mycelin. Just like the lava tiles, I don't use them. So there was no need for me to have it on my spawn table. So any code you don't need, you can remove, and any code you want, you can keep, and any code you want to add, you can add. And basically, since we're extended into the spawn table class, we're extended into it, as you can see if I go way up here. We have extended into the spawn table class. So when you create your new class, you're just going to do all that. You're going to sit down, extend it into the spawn table, and then all you really needed was the static void down here. Then you just add the creatures that you want, put how many you want to spawn whenever the add creature method calls that creature, or that creature template ID, and spawns it in the world. Then it'll spawn that many when it does it. Then you turn around right here, add your creatures that you want to be able to spawn on those tiles, on grass tiles, and you got sand tiles, you got rock, mycelin, marsh, steep, tree tile, sand, clay, and cave. And this here is underground. Now make sure you're not going around and copying this right here and then trying to paste it everywhere else, because you need to pay very close attention to the front of this. It says tree ground, add encounter, sand ground, add encounter, clay ground, and underground. So make sure you're paying attention when you're doing this, so you don't sit down and put tree ground up underneath underground. Make sure you're following the format and everything that needs to be called for where it's at, because clay ID would be clay ground, sand would be sand ground, tree ID would be tree ground, underground, cave underground, so forth. But then in here, as you can see, I added skeletons, zombies, brown bears, crawlers. I added these 4 mobs to be able to spawn underneath the world in the cave system. And you can add whatever mob you want to that list. You can increase their chance, lower their chance, Um, that's pretty much what you do. And then what's going to happen here is whenever the code's running, it's going to come over here in the regular spawn table, and it's going to run through here all the way to the end. And it's going to run through yours all the way to the end. And it's going to do what is being told. So basically, you know, this right here is going to override the original. So basically, add what mobs you want in this top part that ain't already in the list, that, you know, that don't naturally spawn on your server. Like if you're on a PvE server, you don't get gorillas, wargs, hyenas, death crawlers, utachas. You don't get no gumps. You don't get drake spirits, the other spirit. You know, all those mobs. You don't get none of those. So you can actually add them in this list right in here, like I told you and showed you. And then down here you can add them to spawn in underneath these tiles. And then you can give them a chance, whether it's going to be a high chance or a low chance that that mob's going to spawn. And once you do that, you know, save it up. Put both of these in there because you need this one right here that we have altered to make, you know, the public, and removing the final off the class, and just replace the original with this one, and then put yours in there. And then anytime you need to change after that, you just go through here and change whatever you need in your own spawn table without actually having to change any of the original code, besides, you know, the publics and the finals and stuff like that. But hope this video helps. Have any questions, let me know.